Hey guys, this video is going to be different from my usual content. Shout out to KagieMaru for the 91 gifted subs on Twitch, which I've been able to use to actually eat something. So now I have enough energy to record this, because a conflict is coming to a certain head. I'm going to say my piece, seeing as no one around my old friend groups actually asked my side of things. Now, keep in mind, there's always 3 sides to every story. Your side, their side, and the truth. It's something that I need to address, as it's the main reason why uploads over here on YouTube don't happen often, and I'm genuinely tired of feeling like I'm being ignored, so here we are. With that aside, I will state there's going to be a trigger warning here. If you're not comfortable with slurs, assault, abuse, and neglect, feel free to click away. You don't need any of my burden on your shoulders. I won't blame you, I just need to feel like on some level I'm being heard. So, let me start here. I've known Drew for years, since like college. I met him over Warframe, where we were both trying to learn the Vahek trials with our clan at the time. And he seemed to be an okay guy. Made a lot of jokes, wanted to play games, and overall wanted to have a good time. A few years back, I ran into a bit of trouble. I wasn't able to stay with my folks due to a difference of views and beliefs, and he was the one that reached out to me with the offer to stay with him, so. At the time, he was my only option out, and I took it without a second thought. Saving what I had, and asked for a few favors from friends, I was able to buy a plane ticket, pack my stuff, and leave. And in doing so, I moved from Hawaii to California, in which I couldn't really bring much with me aside from 2 bags worth of clothes, my phone, and my wallet. And when I arrived, I didn't sign anything, but we talked it over and agreed that I was going to be subletting, helping out with a portion of the rent, and he helped me get my first job in a place where I had no connections. I met his folks, and started on trying to build a life for myself while working as an overnight Home Depot warehouse associate for their local RDC. You'd think, with the way things were going, I had it made. I was out, I was free to become a better me. And, you know, most could think that you could just ignore the red flags. And that's where my problem started. Drew, in our circles of friends, is a known alcohol addict. He doesn't chill with a few beers, it's not just like a few glasses of wine to ride the night on a buzz, that's just not him. What he does is straight shots of vodka, finishing a 750ml bottle of Peach Amsterdam by himself a night. This 34-year-old only ever wants to get blackout drunk because that's how he has a good time. It's fun for him, and he's made it clear that's all he wants at the expense of everyone else. He's been like this every weekend, without fail, with the abuse of Adderall. And unfortunately for me and his folks, he's the amped up, rowdy type of drunk. And because of that, there's yelling, slamming, slurs, shit-talking, ranting on unending tangents. And there's been on rare occasions where he would just get so amped up, he'd run into the middle of the night with no shoes on and barely any pajamas. Which, as you can imagine, makes it hard to sleep, because I've had to chase him down. And it honestly makes it worse, because when you keep it in mind that drunk words are sober thoughts, I've heard a lot of messed up shit from this man, and considering how comfortable he is with saying, well, basically saying the N-word, but that and slurs, I can't stream or record when he's around like this. I'm just supposed to not think about it much, because he doesn't remember anything he does when he's blacked out. And that's somehow tame, compared to the other things he does. One time I left a 20 around my room so I could go grab light snacks later at the corner store, and that mysteriously disappeared, so it tips me off that he goes into my room when I'm not around. He doesn't clean after himself, he leaves his clothes on the floor for his mother to pick up. He regularly leaves trash around the place and his mom cleans up for him. And it's not just clothes and trash either, I've seen him spit out a half-eaten Twinkie on the sink because he drunkenly forgot that sugar made him crash and he was too busy to get blacked out to care. He doesn't cook either. Every meal I've seen him eat has either been takeout or fast food or his mom cooks for him. I've consistently had to get food in the fridge for myself, because if I didn't, then I didn't eat at all. Then again, this is the fridge we had to work with, so a lot of the food I had to store had to be in my room, because just look at this. Oh my god. My first few months here, he was just talking about kicking it with the homie, wanting to have a good time while he's drunk. And at this point, it's just like, what a surprise, right? I'm already asleep, and I don't know about y'all. I typically like having a lock on my door while I sleep. Call it paranoia, but it's the small comfort in knowing I have a safe place to rest. This man regularly banged on my door to wake me up and hang out when I'm dead tired asleep. And back then, I just waited until he puts it together that I'm asleep or trying to sleep. And, you know, I just wait for him to go away. But he's never stopped. Eventually, he banged and pulled on my door enough times where the hook lock got pulled clean out of the wood. I still can't find the latch, so... my one comfort and safety is gone. And it only gets worse. Because depending on how he feels when he's drunk, he regularly barges down the door, as I've said, and the creepiest bit is on rare occasions, if I'm dead asleep, or if he thinks I'm dead asleep, he will barge into my room, watch me sleep for hours, and calls me cute. He has a picture of me sleeping on his phone. The worst of it all is when he fell on top of me, and then passed out. I had to push this man off of me, and go to sleep on the couch in the living room, and yeah, that's him on my bed and set up after pushing him off of me, and he still does this to this day. Oh my god, that's just been me dealing with him. The full living situation is that we live in a house that was built in the 1930s. There's no working AC, so the summers are always hot, the winters are always bone chilling. On top of that, there's the roach problem, which is, you know, big surprise since this man doesn't clean up after himself, save for like showers and brushing his teeth. Like, come on. Don't expect him to do laundry, cook, hell, he doesn't even flush the toilet. However, he will drunk drive to buy more alcohol just to get blacked out, but I digress. All of us, like, need to work, but we've only ever had one car to work with. And between him and his mother, they both work during the week, and I've been dealing with the constraints of working off their schedules and trying to find jobs in a dead-end town that we live in, which has been frustrating to no end, because every surrounding city has had urgently hiring job openings, but neither of them have been willing to drive me out of town to seek employment. So I've always had to figure things out myself, because, you know, the most help I've ever really gotten was, hey, Trader Joe's is hiring, and that's it, just the mention of it. But, yeah, no, by now you must be wondering what happened to the Home Depot overnight warehouse associate job that I mentioned earlier. When I got here, he suggested that I worked in the same warehouse as he did, and the schedule lined up perfectly. Drew and his mother worked during the weekdays, while he's getting blackout drunk on the weekends from Friday night to Monday morning, 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. shifts. I'd be at work and not have to deal with him at the house. Mostly, anyways. It's damn good at my job, too. What I fell under as an overnight associate was as being part of the inbound/put-away team, because no one on day shift ever wanted to put these carts or pallets away in the CPs. There's been plenty of times they left piles of carts and pallets lined around the rollers and dock zone, still full of items for overnight to put away. On top of, you know, leaving us, the overnight team, with our own tests for the night. It's because of that I got very familiar with the dock zone and CP area. We were a small team, depending on who clocked in for the shift. The most I've seen was like 14 people, and the lowest amount of people I've ever been a part of was a team of 5. In a warehouse the size of like 8 football fields. The work was long, tedious. My team would drop off carts and pallets in the dock zone. I'd take a cart or pallet with the RF scanner and get to work on moving items and scanning them into their proper locations. Long, tedious, but simple enough. Putting away items involves unpacking them out the box and disposing the cardboard after each pallet and cart. Otherwise, I was counting inventory as a form of loss prevention, counting out whole locations by hand if needed, just to get the correct number of items, and we'd try to match that number with the number we have in the system. It was simple, easy, and I actually got Employee of the Month for the work I put in. Nothing really needed to change, and it worked. And, you know, the good times just can't keep rolling, so that was until our supervisor and overnight manager got rotated out and replaced with new ones. Before they were replaced, we had a sense of understanding, a level of empathy, and flexibility with our previous supervisor and, you know, overnight manager. They let us listen to music while we worked because of how isolating the warehouse was for the 13 hours we were in there. We barely talked to each other while we worked, and by the time the shift was over, we all wanted to get out of there as soon as possible, so the music that we had made the shifts bearable for us. Because listening to silence for more than half a day isn't a good thing for people with ADHD, which is the first thing they changed and got rid of. The new supervisor and overnight manager took over, and they did not care about us at all. They were the type to be uncompromising by the book, so couldn't have music, couldn't help out one another in the warehouse unless it was justified to be a team lift. Otherwise, good luck. And they started micromanaging our work and scan times, because Lord knows some of these locations in the warehouse take forever to be put away. But they didn't care because it was too slow, even though we were losing people at the time. Our already small team were having people that were transferring out or being let go, meaning more work piled onto those that stayed as time went over. So the worst part about it is that they weren't in a hire replacement, and it got to the point where I was completely alone in the CPUs, where the upstairs and downstairs dock zones needed to be emptied as fast as can be. That way we could finish our tasks for the night. And where was our new supervisor, you may ask? Not helping us out. Like hell not helping us out. You'd be taking a nap in the quiet room or watching the NFL on his phone in the office room. Our first town meeting with HR as an overnight crew was the first one the overnight team had since the building was open for employment. Not to mention, HR only clocked around 2 hours before our shift ended, and by then we were like zombies, trying to make it home without being in a car accident. So regardless of what we asked for, even if we got music back, it made things bearable. But whatever we said fell on deaf ears. I think you'd understand that at this point, I was burning out. My one reprieve from my home life was slowly turning into a shitfest, just to keep the numbers of they only kept me around to keep the productivity numbers up with less and less people, and I wasn't doing good. I was getting more irritable, frustrated, and we effectively had no one to talk to about this. And I honestly just wasn't having it, because I put up with a drunk asshole at home, and now I had to deal with micromanaging, uncompromising assholes at work. So I kinda snapped one day. I kicked one of the doors to relieve some form of frustration and stress on my last break before clocking out, and somehow that was the only tell that I wasn't okay, because that was the first time they've actively tried talking to me. And this was months after they've replaced their previous supervisor and overnight manager. But, you know, that was the only tell that they could tell that I wasn't okay. The overnight manager stopped me before I could finish, the rest of the work I had. and asked me what that was about. And unfortunately, I wasn't even relieved that I had someone to talk to because I was confronting someone that I held so much resentment towards because he already showed me how little he cared about his own staff. And I said, you know, if I could, I wouldn't mind curb stomping you or the supervisor, and walked away to finish the rest of my shift and started cleaning up the docks then. Could I have handled that better? Sure, but at that point I was like 10 hours in, my patience was non-existent, and zombie brain took over. Soon after, right before everyone got ready to clock out, they called me aside to talk, but instead of like talking, it was more of an interrogation. Because the overnight manager didn't want to sort things out with me using HR or try to see like what's been going on. Cause remember, yeah, no, I've been working hard at this warehouse, but I still have that nightmare to deal with at home. But instead of like wanting to talk to me, see what was wrong, get to know me, that whole type of deal, try to get things sorted out with HR, he went instead straight to the warehouse director, the head honcho of the entire building, to get me fired. There was no conversation, there was no opening like for me to reason with or talk to or to explain to anyone, because they didn't care. They just cut me loose. I was forced to give up my badge, I was escorted out the building, and was basically told to kick sand when I started walking 14 miles just to get home. To which I've talked to like my ex-coworkers about it since, and they all agree that it was fucked up because I worked my ass off for them. But, you know, that just goes to show being a part of a family company doesn't mean squat if you don't kowtow for them at every turn. So, afterwards, after all that, it's just been going downhill since then. I went back into the job searching trenches, and in that time, I picked up streaming when I could, basically to try and develop a hobby since, well, I now had free time on unemployment. I was still able to pay my portion of the rent at the time, commission my model and rigging, and got a few emotes made. However, now that I didn't have work, I'd always have to deal with someone drunk in the background, talking shit in honestly some of the most heinous ways. And how Drew hates himself, how he wants everyone to die, how his father abused his mother for years and it's still going, how he's waiting for his said father to die, how he's the strongest and that everyone else is too weak to handle him. Yet he was born to suffer and that I was just like him. He's consistently held it over my head that I have nothing without him, because without him I don't have a car for work, I don't have a roof over my head, I don't have food to eat, simply because he is Superman and everyone else is too much of a coward to be like him. He's the truth of the world, and that he needs to put everyone down. And then all this time, I'm being paid on unemployment and he's busy telling our friends that I'm lazy and don't work for anything. He didn't hide any animosity or jealousy over my relationship with my girlfriend either. Just like fucking DMing her inappropriate messages, calling her a whore openly in front of me, that she was only dating me for my money. He'd made it fully clear that I could have had anyone, and he was only frustrated that it wasn't anyone he could have nearby. He actually punched a hole in the wall over this, it's fucking ridiculous.
Hey, I'm Nev's girlfriend. He told me about this video and I figured adding my 2 cents might help. We started dating a year and 3 months ago as of recording. The first few months were fine, but after the fourth, I met Drew. It started normal with small talk and playing games together. It was fine until he heard that I was dating Nev. From that point, I could tell he didn't like me anymore. He was very passive aggressive and it never got better. He started calling me the N-word, both with and without the hard R. I believe our races matter, given how often he uses the racial slur. He is Pacific Islander and Mexican, and I'm white. As a white person, I personally am very uncomfortable with the word due to its history. I have explained this to him multiple times, but he never stopped. It didn't matter if he was drunk or sober. On top of racial slurs, he frequently calls me names: gold digger, bitch, whore, any derogatory word you could think of just to upset me. He told me I talk too much and need to shut up often. I am being very nice and not using the actual wording. He would claim that he was being real with me when he said these things. When the name calling stopped working, he started telling me Nev could have anyone, and I'm lucky he settled for me. Making sure to emphasize the word settled. That he has women hanging off him anytime he leaves the house, and that he could easily have any of them. He would tell me it was meant to be a boost to my self-confidence, but I also know through his friends, he knows I have a history of being cheated on. He also frequently sent me DMs. There were many times where he would send a DM, delete it, and then send another equally horrible one right after it. Sometimes I would watch him do this. Other times I would wake up to having 100 notifications, but when I would go into Discord, I would only have 5 actual, notifications from him. I ended up blocking him after a night where he wandered into Nev's room, very drunk, and just started ranting about how I was a bitch, a whore, a person who only wanted Nev for his money. How Nev could have literally anyone but me, and he chose to settle for a stupid bitch like me. I yelled at him and ended up blocking him afterward. I told Nev I was done and that I didn't want to deal with him anymore. Nev, of course, accepted this, and he ended up sending Nev this apology thing meant for me. And I guess just hoped things would go back to normal. Throughout all of this, Nev has had to remain silent so that he can keep a roof over his head. I don't blame Nev for any of what's happened, and I give him full permission to use any audio needed to show just how much of a piece of shit this man is. I don't want any publicity from this, which is why I have not used my model, nor have I said my name. If he wants to link me in the description, that's fine, but I just want my perspective to be out there so it can hopefully help him and help others realize how shitty of a person this guy is. Thank you for listening.
And somehow it only got worse when I found another job, which was unfortunately at Winco Foods. I shouldn't complain, I just had to bite my tongue and go back into retail, starting as a produce clerk. The job wasn't hard, but the conditions weren't exactly the greatest. The way they handle produce at Winco Foods is it would be delivered in the morning, dropped off on pallets, stacked up and wrapped in plastic. However, the downside is that the pallets are never organized and you're juggling between downstacking and making sure the shelves are filled to either the brim or to make it presentable and, have a mound of produce for guests to grab from. So, you're busy downstacking unorganized pallets, trying to refill the shelves and wet rack, all the while, something you need could be at the very bottom of the stack. Not to mention, some of the produce delivered, which, you need to keep an eye on, may need to be thrown away, because something like the strawberries would be moldy on arrival, which says more about the distribution warehouse than it does the retail store itself. Because you always need a keen eye to see what you need, and then stack your cart as much as possible in order to shorten your visits of always having to go back and forth. And, in all of this, you're cutting through cardboard, mesh, plastic wrap, these tiny knives that can just as easily slip from your hand due to the lack of grip they have. Which, is so convoluted because, if you ever use a better knife, like an actual safety knife, you'd be told to dispose of it because that's not work regulated. When you're cutting, the top off the boxes and sliding them on the shelves, and you're still expected to make sure, your work area is clean, swept, to assist guests whenever they need help or ask for something. The job itself wasn't hard, it was always chaotic, mismanaged, and, if guests started touching up on you, you had to pretend like it wasn't happening and focus on your job. Not to mention, you're trying your hardest not to get sick due to people deciding to shop with COVID. So, grocery retail in a nutshell, and, somehow I could tolerate that. The actual reason why it got worse is because Winter Foods had me on irregular shifts, because every new hire starts off as part-time, and only full-timers get a stable schedule. However, there's no 90-day wait period until you achieve full-time. It's a 90-day wait period until you're considered for full-time. Meaning they'll give you full-time if they deem it necessary. But because of that, I'd only have whatever hours I could work for the week. Which I requested for more to be planned ahead of time because we only have one car to work with. I couldn't go to work on call if the car's not here because Drew and his mother are at work. But that fact always fell on deaf ears because both sides of my work and home life, and, you know, complaints didn't end until after I left. And since my schedule is always conflicted with theirs, I'd always be met with, well, why couldn't you just keep your mouth shut? Because they liked it better when I was working at Home Depot. And because I was at the mercy of a schedule I could neither, negotiate or depend on, they would always get me on attendance. There's no grace period to get to your job, on time. They don't take any form of excuse. If I was late by even a minute, because I'm late waiting to get picked up or dropped off because Drew and his mother need the car, I would get attendance warnings or written up, and if they didn't do that, they would purposely reduce my work hours. It got so bad to the point where I had a few weeks where I only had 2 half shifts on Saturday and Sunday. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., that was it. And that's nowhere near, an amount of work anyone can live off of. And they weren't hiding the fact at all that they were trying to push me out with the write-ups. And, by the time I left, I was already on my final warning in a situation that I cannot control. Which, I was thankful at the time, because I was still job searching because of the bullshit they were doing. I was thankful at the time when I found the FedEx ground job, and, I was able to leave the work drama-filled chaos because it's always work politics in retail for whatever reason. And I was happy. I was. It was an opportunity to get back into a warehouse environment, and I took it the moment I got an email offering the position. Best part about it, I was scheduled back for overnight weekend shifts, Friday through Monday, as a loader for trailers, and, it paid better than Winter Foods. I will admit, however, it feels like no one really followed the training, because keeping combustibles, potential explosives, or corrosive chemicals apart from one another is something you're supposed to keep in mind, right? But they don't really care. You're just supposed to fill out space where you can fill out space. You're also not allowed to have your phone in the facility, and gate security will escort you out if you have your phone on you, which, seemed to be convenient since safety is not a priority over there. Because, all of them were more concerned with making sure the trailers were loaded or unloaded instead of looking out for their employees. And, if there's empty space in a loading trailer, that's just money lost. And that is what it is. I think the worst part about it is that all the loading and unloading is done by hand. There's no safe lifting here either. You kind of just had to make sure whatever you grabbed was moved quickly. And it didn't matter if it was heavy, like a fridge or a water heater. You had to learn how to load 2 different types of trailers, one of them being the usual utility trailers, filling them up with a step stool, making sure the wall of boxes you made didn't collapse on top of you. And the other kind of trailers were the belly trailers. You'd have to jump inside from the dock zone and lift up the floor panels to fill out that space first. Then you can close the panels and then fill out the rest of the space. That aside, it was pretty much simple, quiet work, just making sure packages big and small were, fed into the trailers, making sure the chutes and conveyor belts funneling packages in weren't piling up. And, while it sounds simple, managers there will withhold your breaks until you meet their standards. And in loading, you can take your time because you're waiting on packages to get sorted through the facility and then come to you for the correct trailer. But their standards heavily applies to unloading, which, is the team I signed up for. I was, on the job, it still says loader, but I was moved around to that team regularly. In unloading, they want you and your unloading partner to empty out a trailer, like a full trailer, in 45 minutes to an hour, and you never know what's in a trailer when unloading it. Like, I almost saw my unloading partner did a free lobotomy because a steel pipe that was, like, up top slid down so quick it almost gouged out his eye. And which, you know, management did not care what was inside of the trailers, just how long it took for us to unload them. And if you took too long, you can basically kiss your brakes goodbye. I've had a whole weekends where I just didn't get a break and had to power through it, which, you know, one of my ex-coworkers there admitted that they willingly work people to death in the facility. Which, you know, I'm telling Drew about this because it's understandably ridiculous, but it'd always be dismissed with a, and I'm, like, verbatim, damn, that's crazy. And I'd figured I'd just breathe, work my 90 days, and start applying to other FedEx positions that dealt with, like, more paperwork or something like human resources. Which was my plan until it went wrong. One night, while loading a trailer, we were like a quarter of the way through the shift, and we were just getting started. I was, like, one wall was finished, I was starting up on the next wall of packages, and my loading partner for the night saw that there was empty space up top, picked up a small package to try and push it up there, and make it fit. And the unfortunate timing was I was already getting started on placing boxes down. I wasn't looking up. And that's when a 20-pound box fell from 9 feet high and collided with my head. And after that, it was just a blurry night. I was seeing stars, fighting the urge to vomit, because I ended up with a concussion on workers' comp, yeah. I had to go to regular doctor's checks to to see if I was able to work, in which, you know, I couldn't do anything. The only things available in the facility for me to do was load or unload. I wasn't cleared to look at paperwork. Not to mention, they kept scheduling these doctor's visits in the middle of the week, which started to conflict with Drew and his mother's schedule again. So most visits, when the car wasn't available, I had to burn money on Uber just to get seen by a doctor. And when I got back to FedEx ground, they had to figure out what to do with me, in which they did two things. I sat with the safety team, and they made sure I could do office work that wasn't, like, violating an NDA. So I'd just be writing lists of names for people that get their packages shipped to the facility, or, like, make a list of packages that need to be repacked, so. But the safety team was rarely in the building for overnight shifts, in which whenever that happened, which was often, the supervisors and managers would send me back to loading, unloading, or home. Which, you know, they didn't always send me home. So I'd be working in unloading or loading with a concussion, which I could barely manage working through. They have it on file too, because, you know, I felt like I was dying operating in a fog. And, you know, while I was in unloading, I left early that night. I couldn't keep up, like, with anyone like that. So I left after a few hours, and to which, the next day, I got written up for insubordination and ignoring the chain of command, with a concussion. But I was still expected to work in the trailers despite having one, and ever since that report, I never got, like, another, like, notification for a work shift. The app always came up blank, and I wasn't allowed to pick up, like, other shifts either. And despite that, to maintain work compliance, I still had to visit the doctor to make sure I was okay. I had 2 separate MRIs to make sure, like, my noggin was healed up and working, in which, you know, I'm burning money I don't have to stay in work compliance, you know, as much as I could with all these fucking Uber rides. And, you know, when I was finally out of cash, I missed 1 visit, had to reschedule, and that's when I asked for a ride, in which, you know, when that day came, guess who was drunk off his ass and could not function? If you guessed Drew, you'd be right, and he couldn't take me. And because of that, I missed the rescheduled appointment, which ended my workers' comp, and since then, I've never heard from FedEx Ground again. Which, you know, kinda leads me to today. I've been looking for jobs for months without anything coming back to me. I've been operating only on white bread and water, I got registered as a California State security guard so I could start applying for like loss prevention jobs, keeping records of inventory. I've not been like picky in job searching either. Like seriously, do you know how demeaning it feels when McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell, Burger King, Jack in the Box, Walmart, Target, Trader Joe's, etc. Every fast food chain and grocery store in town won't take you? I'm a hard fucking worker. I know I am. Hell, I've reapplied to Home Depot and Winco Foods only to be ghosted, and it's been the same as I've applied to other warehouses and like remote call representative like work as well. And I don't even get rejection emails from them. Nothing's been biting, and then like last month when I'm trying to write and take my mind off things because I don't need to spiral, I don't have time to spiral, so I might as well be productive. Drew drunkenly bangs on my door at 1 in the morning, tells me that I have until the end of May to find something, otherwise I can't stay here, which I'm like, great, I'll just keep on applying then. And then this asshole tells me in verbatim, hey, so since we're probably not gonna kick it anymore, let's go get drinks. Mind you, he's already drunk at this point, and I'm being ushered into the car. He has me doing shots of vodka with him at 3 separate bars, one of which he forgot to pay and just walked us out the building. Like, I don't have time for this. That should be obvious. Yet, he's only ever focused on having a good time, drinking, and, you know, creeping on girls. Like, this man kept us out until fucking sunrise, because he wants me to remember him as being crazy and fun. Like, by the time we got back, like, I couldn't sleep, I could barely think, and I started writing on this because I'm at my wit's fucking end. And I'm sure there are those of you that would still insist that it couldn't be all that bad. Like, I'm gonna leave y'all with 5 minutes of audio of what it's like living with him at the end of the video, and, you know, if you don't want to hear him, feel free to click away now. That being said, I wish you all a lovely day, lovely afternoon, evening, and night. I'll catch you guys next time, and, enjoy.
I don't talk for him, thanks.
What?
I don't talk too much, nor do I talk for him, thanks.
You talk too much, bitch. Shut up.
Look, if I were to talk too much, you'd hate me.
No, I don't.
With a lot of the things.
I swear to God,
No.
I don't hate you.
You know, here's the thing: is that you would hate me for some of the things that I would say.
No. You literally talk a lot.
I don't.
You do.
I'm frequently the one who speaks the least in chats.
You know what the difference is? You didn't talk that much when you were freaking younger and all that shit, right? That is 100% right. Anyway, and now you think that you gotta talk. You gotta voice your opinion.
I don't.
Well, you do.
You don't even know 1/10 of my opinions.
Ellie, bro. I like you, Ellie. Why are you trying to put me down? I'm literally the truth of the world. It's unfortunate truth. Anyway, you know what? Put me down. I'm in the wrong. Goddamn it, Ellie. Anyway, remember, I am drunk. I'm too true. I'm your nigga Drew. It's fine. God damn it, Ellie, why? Why? Try to talk down to me. I had your back and you let me down.
I am not talking down to you. You don't want me to talk down to you.
He can't do it because it's too hard.
No, it's extraordinarily easy. I choose not to because I pick my battles.
Oh, hey, see? No. Damn it. God damn it. How you gonna talk down to me? I fucking hate my life. And I move up further than that. That's all it is. Guess who's holding this house down? Me. Can you see the same? That's all I'm saying. Who has a house right now? Me. Wrong, right, everything? Yeah. No. I calculate everything so I can hold this fucking house down for everyone. I'm sorry, Ellie. I'm literally sorry. I fucking hate my life. I hate everyone. Honestly, I'm just the most hateful nigga. I mean, this is why I will die alone. That's it. I had to suffer. Mathematically correct. I had to suffer. Anyway. Anyway, Ellie. You know what's funny? Me and you on the same level, but I had to suffer because I'm a minority, and I had to accept everything because I'm a minority. Ain't nobody care about me. Who cares about me? Nobody. Truth. Super truth. Literally nobody cares about me.
There are plenty of people who care about you.
No. Oh, this is a different thing, Allie. People trying to care about me? Oh, that's cool. You're cute. I love you all. But guess who has to fucking pay the bills? Guess who has to fucking live? I'm close to homeless. I'm super close to homeless. That's it. This is why I hate all of you. This is why I hate everyone.